we did not want to talk about it. We were super awkward.
Really exceeded my expectations because I just didn't know that was even possible.
I would love Chandler the way that I wanted to be loved.
Marriage will put you to the test.
There's an attack on sex in marriage because it's so holy and it's such a weapon and it's such a gift. And that was just so chaotic. I was screaming because I got scared. It was just a catastrophe.
You're listening to Let's Get Knotty,
a podcast for real talk and honest conversations about all things relationships and marriage, the good, the bad, and the naughty.
Whether you're already married, almost married, or wanting to get married, we're here to help you build a solid foundation for a love that lasts. Let's get naughty, y'all. Hey, y'all. Welcome back to the Let's Get Knotty podcast.
Welcome back, y'all. As we've shared, a huge goal that we have with this podcast is not just to talk about our own marriage, but to share other people's love stories. We want to bring couples on this show and just give a microphone to so many other amazing couples and what they've learned in marriage and how they've navigated their own love stories. So we are very excited that today we have our first ever guest on the show.
Today we have Jessica and Chandler Miller.
Yeah, and if you don't know them yet, you are absolutely going to fall in love with them through this episode. I'll tell you a little bit about them. Chandler and Jessica are both 23 years old, and they've been married a little over a year. They originally met through a missions organization called YWAM, where they lived in Hawaii and Brazil, which they tell us more about in this episode, their crazy love story. Since getting married last year, they decided to take a pause from full-time ministry and focus on building the foundation of their marriage, where they've been settling in Sarasota, Florida. You might know Jessica as Jessica Reid. She's been sharing her life on YouTube for 8 years, but they are now both working for their family business, and you guys are going to love them. In this episode, we dive into so much about how they fell in love, but also how they prepared for marriage, how they've navigated their first year of marriage, what they've learned so far.
Yeah, it's just really cool to see such a young couple just date really well and just be very intentional about everything they do. And so I think it's just really encouraging for, if you're already married, just some ideas. I was encouraged in what we could be doing more in our marriage. And then just couples who are dating, just a great example of how to date well.
Yeah, for sure. You're going to be really encouraged by them. I know you're going to love this conversation. So let's dive right in.
Jessica and Chandler, welcome to the Let's Get Knotty podcast. We're so excited to have you guys on.
We're so excited to be
Thank
here.
you guys for having us. Yes.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for being willing to be our very first guests on the show. We're so honored that it's y'all too.
Yeah. We are honored too. This is we're so passionate about healthy marriages, and we love your guys' heart behind starting this podcast and wanting to help young couples or couples just all the way through marriage. And so we couldn't be more excited to just share a little bit about our story.
So speaking of which, we know from your bio that you guys met in ministry. But we got to know the dirty details. Tell us more about how you fell in love. Tell us your love story.
Definitely.
Sure. Well,
do you want me to go first?
I'll let you share, and then I might just fill in here and there.
I feel like I have more of the details, but he has the overall picture. So we met in ministry. We were actually full-time missionaries. So I went and did a discipleship training school in YWAM. It's called Youth with a Mission, and it's one of the largest sending and training missionary schools in all of the world, actually. And so I went there having no intention to meet anyone. I was just fully set on having time with the Lord and learning missions and just getting the heart behind that, and honestly going into full-time ministry. And so going into this discipleship training school, which was 6 months, I had absolutely no intention of looking for anyone. I wasn't interested. I kind of was I'm going on my honeymoon with Jesus. I had said no to going to school and turned down a scholarship and everything. So I was just kind of laser focused. And then Chandler just happened to be my outreach leader, and I just knew he was different from the first time that I met him, and I wasn't sure quite what it was, but I just had this weird feeling, honestly, early on, and it wasn't there was any real initial chemistry or attraction between either of us. But I think what really drew me to Chandler was his heart, the way that he loved Jesus, the way that he loved people, and just his character all around. I really got to see his character through and through of 3 months of training at this mission school, and then 3 months of outreach in a foreign nation where we went to Brazil, and we lived in the Amazon jungle. We lived on a boat. We slept in hammocks. Wow. We traveled to all these different cities where we had such a language barrier. We went through some pretty crazy things that happened, and just seeing him like stand the test of leading a team of 11 people by himself. So he was a solo leader, and just the character that he had, it like really drew me in, and I was very intrigued by him. And I just fell in love with like his heart. And by the end of outreach, I was definitely crushing. Like I really started to have feelings for him. I think the feeling was kind of mutual. But during that school, we couldn't really like share our feelings with each other because
well, like, so during the 6-month discipleship training school, students who come in, we like ask them not to date or to start any relationship while they're there, so that they can focus like on their relationship with Jesus, focus on missions, like short-term missions, going on outreach, stuff like that. So, you know, Jess knew that, and but there was definitely some attraction there, you know, towards the end especially.
And we really wanted to just like maintain integrity all the way around. So there was a lot of times where I think we knew that there was something there, and like even our team jokingly would make comments about it, but like we did not want to talk about it. We were super awkward. Like we'll like think back on our story and we'll just like laugh hysterically. Like, how could we have been like more awkward? But I think it was because we knew it was real, and we knew it was like serious, and we didn't want to put pressure on it, but also like it was something that we really saw something in the other person, and so we wanted to handle it with a lot of integrity. So by the end of it, when the school was over, that's actually when COVID hit. So we got back from Brazil, and like a week later, the whole country was basically in lockdown. And so we had to like fly back from Brazil. Our whole entire debrief with the school of like 400 students got canceled, where we were going to get to kind of debrief all that God did in that 6 months. We thought, you know, oh, we're probably going to go on some dates and get to like actually share how we feel because the school's over, and all of that kind of changed. But we just continued to pursue friendship with one another, and then you could share.
So from my side, I did my discipleship training school a year before Jess did. And so mine was 2018 through 2019. And then after I got done, I decided to come back on staff. And so I did like a 3-month staff training, or like a leadership school. And then I was on staff for her school. And so, you know, basically what being on staff looks like is that you lead an outreach team of, you know, normally like 10 to 15 people. And we actually had not enough staff for that school compared to the amount of students that were a part of the school. So there was like, I think there was almost 40 of us staff for like almost 400 students. Definitely like really shorthanded. So typically there's like 2 leaders for an outreach team. A lot of the outreach teams had to have just 1 leader because there wasn't enough staff to go around. So I was a solo leader of a team of 11 people. And so initially I was like, well, I want to, you know, maybe pick someone from my team to kind of like raise them up to help me lead the team, specifically a girl from the team. Because as a guy, you know, it's like you can only go so much with discipling other girls, you know, who are under you.
Sure.
And so I definitely noticed Jess and just like her character, and like I could tell right away that she was like a natural leader, and she like had such a heart for the Lord, and just like really like loved Jesus. And so like initially there wasn't any attraction on my part. I just like noticed that about her. Like you can just tell when someone's a natural leader, right? And so probably a month and a half in, I sat down with her, or like we had lunch or something, and I asked her if she would want to like help me disciple the girls on the team / kind of like help me lead the team. And so that kind of started our like relationship, I guess you could say, or just like
friendship.
Maybe friendship. Yeah. Friendship's a better word. At some point, like in the beginning of outreach, I started to like notice Jessica, you know, a little bit more, and just like notice little things about her, just like could like really just see like how beautiful she was. And, you know, but for me as a leader and for her as a student, like
it was an awkward situation.
Right. And so like when you like someone and you're like, you know, for one, their leader, they're your student, even though we were kind of leading the team together, you're with each other every day. It's like really hard to hide that. You know, Jessica was right. I mean, we were like super awkward. But it was all good. I mean, we can like look back and like laugh at it, and it's like so funny.
Sure. I love it.
But yeah, eventually we did actually sit down and talk when we were on outreach a few weeks before we came back, and we kind of had what we call like a DTR, like define the relationship.
Yeah, I was just gonna say your DTR.
Yep. And we just like sat down and we told each other that like we had feelings for each other.
Yeah.
And so that kind of like cleared the air. Like we both knew, okay, we like each other. Like we can just like continue to be friends until outreach is over. And then, you know, if there's still something there, we can pursue something further.
Which made it less awkward because then we kind of knew how each other felt and like our intentions behind it, because we both agreed like we really want to just keep growing in friendship, but it removed the level of awkwardness because when people would kind of make subtle comments, or we had never like discussed that, so that really helped us.
But that's, and then after outreach, COVID happened, so like everything shut down. She went back to Florida.
And you guys didn't live in the same place, right?
Right.
No,
Yeah,
I lived in Florida.
No, we didn't. She lived in Florida. I lived in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
So we're like separated, like all the flights are canceling, like states are shutting down.
Gosh.
It's like so crazy. But I managed to get on a flight almost 3 weeks after we had both like left. So it was like the very end of March. So like I don't know if you remember that time, like everything was like really serious by then. Like basically the world was ending, right? But I flew down on like a basically like empty plane, and I flew down to Florida and stayed with her family for like a week. And the day after I flew down, I asked her to be my girlfriend. So, and that was official. Yeah.
And then we dated we actually had a pretty like quick relationship. I think too, like the season of life that we were in with like our mission school and stuff, normally relationships progress pretty fast just because it's a really fast-paced culture of training students and sending them to the nation. So we dated for about 5.5 months, and so we started dating at the end of March, and then in September we got engaged, and then the following year, March, we got married, which was actually, fun fact, one day before our 1 year anniversary. We like had been officially together for like a year, and then we got married. It was awesome. I just guess like you know when you know, and the life that we were living in missions, we were like, we just want to do it together because we had to be separated. That was another thing. Like when we would lead outreaches, I led a team because basically COVID had shut down all the nations we couldn't get in through different borders. So we did an all-America outreach with a bunch of students for a school. And he led to different states for like 2 months, and I led to different states for 2 months. And during that time, like we were separated during our engagement. And so it was just the lifestyle that we had. We were like, we don't want to be separated. We had to do a lot of long distance and different things. Like we just wanted to be together and get to do life together.
And hey, I mean, even before you dated, like just the experience you had, what more do you need to know someone's character, right? Like we're big fans that you don't need a lot of time dating to know if you can marry someone, but like that's such a testament to, I'm sure before you even, like you said, before you even dated, like I'm sure you knew so much about each other and like the character of who they would be as your spouse. Like you don't need much more than that, right? That's awesome.
One of the things we always encourage our couples in is to get deeper. You know, I think so many people when they're dating really are at the like we like each other phase and maybe don't know the depths of each other's hearts or just that deeper level. And it's so cool that you guys kind of started at like a deep knowledge and a deep friendship, and then kind of progress from there.
Yeah. Definitely. And then the like romance came because the romance is not what you build a marriage on, you know? So the fact that you guys did that in what culturally is basically reverse, like that's really cool.
Definitely. Yeah. We love awesome. That like that was our story, and like any advice we've ever given to our friends, it's like having like a solid friendship is the best way to have a healthy relationship and marriage, like being best friends with the other person. And we definitely got to do that, which was really cool.
You started with that. Yeah.
You always want to be really friends with the person that you're either going to date or going to marry, because if you're not friends, then you're in trouble.
Exactly.
It's pretty helpful.
Yeah. That's awesome, guys.
Sometimes
We
though,
love your
like I
story.
think culture, you can get so like caught up in like infatuation and passion and all of that, but it's like at the end of the day, like sometimes when those feelings go away and you go through hard times in life, it's like, are they your best friend? Are they the person that you love to do every moment with? And that's like where honestly, like the most special moments I think come from just like doing life with your best friend.
All right, after a little technical difficulty, we are back at it.
Yes.
Thanks for being patient, y'all.
You guys dated so well and with such intention.
Yeah.
And I think we're excited to share our story at some point because that was not our story.
Yeah, I
And
wish we would have done more of that.
All over the place in our
Yeah.
dating. And so it's just really cool to see, like, now that, you know, we're really into this, like, hey, like,
Yes.
we did this really poorly, but it's really cool to see how you can do it really well.
Yeah, y'all are such a testament to that. So with that, one of the things we've loved listening to your YouTube videos about your marriage and your story of dating, you guys, we noticed y'all talk a lot about expectations, which got us so excited because
it's one of our favorite
topics. We
topics.
love talking about expectations. Like with all of our couples that we mentor, that is just one of the biggest conversations we have because we know that they have such an impact on your satisfaction in your marriage. And so we'd love to hear more, like now that y'all are a little more than a year, right, into marriage, like how have you seen that work you did to manage those expectations? How have you seen that play out so far in your marriage?
That's such a good question.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Going into marriage, you do have so many expectations. Like even before you date anyone, you know, you always like imagine what it'd be like to be married, and just so like I feel like there were a lot of expectations for both of us going into marriage.
Like ones that we didn't even realize, I would say.
Yeah.
Like just like subtle expectations that we had maybe imagined in our mind for years, like growing up, or kind of were like in the back of our head.
Definitely. I mean, I think like
Totally.
something that, or some advice that I got to specifically, I guess, like for the wedding night is just like not to have like any expectations. But then like at some point, like you still have expectations. Like it's like impossible not to. So like that's like specific for that example. But I think like for marriage in general, you know, the balance of like not having too high of expectations and like not having like, you know, not having low expectations either, but like having realistic expectations of like what, you know, what is marriage going to look like? Like, how are we going to do this together? How are we going to work together? So like both of us come from Christian households. So I feel like at least based on like biblical worldview, like both of us had like a pretty biblical worldview of like what a healthy marriage looks like. And so I feel like that was like a huge bonus already for us going into marriage, just like already had like, you know, this is like somewhat of like what a healthy marriage looks like.
That is such a blessing to have that modeled for you, especially coming from both of you. Like that's invaluable. That's amazing. Have you noticed like specific ways that marriage has exceeded your expectations, or things that have been hard when it comes to expectations, like specific ways that has played out for you guys?
Yeah, that's also a really good question. I think a few ways that marriage has exceeded expectations is I like never knew that you could like know someone so intimately, like spiritually, emotionally, physically. And like I guess I just like didn't know like, you know, that it was even possible, you know, in like a relation, you know, like a human relationship, to like know someone so deeply in like all aspects, and like to know someone in and out, you know, like and like I'm still getting to know Jess. Like, you know, we've only been married a year and a half. We've only really known each other for like less than 3 years.
Yeah.
But just like the amount that you get to know someone is just like incredible and like really vulnerable. And but like so amazing at the same time, you know. It's like how God created it. And so I think something for me that's like really exceeded my expectations, because I just like didn't know that that was even possible.
No, I agree. That's one of the coolest things about marriage is that intimacy. And like the more that Cashmere knows me, the more he knows my brokenness, and yet the more that our love grows for each other. Praise God that he created marriage to be that way. Like there's no greater tangible expression I have of Jesus' love for me than Cashmere's, because he knows me on such an intimate level, like you said. And that's just so cool. Like you said, I think you in a headway, like know about that going into marriage, but
Yeah.
experiencing it is a whole different thing. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
So good.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I would say
Yeah.
too, like something that blew away my expectations and like I didn't even really expect, but just like the freedom that there is in marriage and how like what you were saying, your spouse knowing you so intimately that it's almost like, at least for me, sometimes in my relationship with the Lord, like I can struggle with vulnerability and like, okay, God, like here's some of the things I want to give you. Here's parts of my heart that I want to show you. But like some of the things that I'm scared of, I'm like scared to bring it before the Lord. But like Chandler fully seeing me for like who I am, that was something that at the beginning of marriage, it was kind of like, wow. But at the same time, seeing the way that he like brought me in with like love and acceptance and just covered me in prayer and made me feel so safe to just fully be myself was something that I had like never experienced. That it was like grace and almost like mercy and kindness and patience with me. So that like totally blew my expectations. And then I think something that I heard someone say that I never really put together only until like the last year was, when you're asking yourself when you're going to marry someone, you should really just be asking the question instead of, are they the one? Like, am I willing to lay my life down for this person for the rest of my life?
That just gave me chills.
And like, I've really
Hey, if you
seen
guys
that,
want to
like,
guest host for us, you guys are stealing some of our lines. We're laughing over.
Yeah,
here.
we literally just recorded an episode where we talked about that, like finding the one. We don't believe in the one. It's more of like, is this a person I can commit my life to, that I trust is going to fight for me, that I can fight for? Because that's what it is, right? And so,
amen.
oh my gosh,
That's right.
amen.
So good.
That
Yeah,
gave me chills. That is so beautiful how you said that. I love it.
Thank you. But yeah, like, are you willing to lay down your life? And really, it's what Jesus modeled to us. And like marriage, I think in culture, and I didn't realize even myself, like Chandler was my first boyfriend, and I definitely had a view of marriage from my parents that was really healthy, and I saw my parents lay their lives down for each other. But I would even say like the movies that I saw, maybe online relationships or different things discipled me to see only one part of what marriage looked like, and almost like this super like romantic, like perfect side of it, and not like really this is like we are built to do the hard things. Like God has made us to be able to withstand hard things and to be more than conquerors. And in marriage, like we're a team and we get to choose every day if we're going to lay down our life for our spouse or not, and like put their needs above our own, just as God has modeled to us. So I think like more so, I feel like that wasn't something that I like honestly really even understood and grasped until I went into marriage, and I was like, oh my gosh, like this is a privilege. Sometimes it's hard, but it's such a privilege that I get to lay down my life for my spouse, to love him. And in turn, like it's really just glorifying the Lord. Like the more of myself that I lay down and I give to Chandler, like I'm worshiping the Lord in a way, because like I'm loving Chandler the way that God wants to love Chandler.
Yes, really amen. That's incredible.
Yeah, kind of even like going off of that, like an expectation that has maybe been harder into marriage has been just the laying the life down part, because like I never really considered myself as like a super selfish person. I mean, yeah, like we all have our flaws and, you know, we're not perfect. But like I'm a pretty mellow person, you know, easygoing, can get along with most people. But it's definitely, marriage will put you to the test of like, you know, bringing out any ounce of selfishness whatsoever.
Humbling.
A part that I like didn't, you know, like I just thought, oh, it's gonna be like so easy to like love my wife and like serve her and like, you know, just like lay down my life for her. Like that just sounds like, you know, it sounds easy when you're not living it out day to day, but it really is hard. But then like that's what makes it so beautiful, and like that's what makes marriage like so amazing, is because it is hard.
That's incredible. What are maybe some of the like practical ways, because you both spoke to serving each other selflessly and laying your life down for each other? I think it's really easy for us to talk about that, and you probably heard that going into marriage, that that's what you were called to do, but sometimes we miss the mark on communicating like really tangibly what that looks like. And I think it looks different in every marriage, but what are some like practical ways you guys have learned that so far?
I can share. I mean, like just really simple practical things is like I think, first of all, knowing your spouse's love languages and like what's important to them, because that's such a way that you can love them. Like, do they love quality time? Do they love acts of service, words of affirmation? Like, what is it to them that fills their love tank? Because we learned so much right away, like in marriage. I would love Chandler the way that I wanted to be loved through my love languages, and he would in turn do the same for me. So like mine is words of affirmation or quality time, and I would be, those aren't like his top, but I would be doing that to him and affirming him. But really, like, he loves acts of service. So as simple as like, if I'm just faithful to like wash his clothes and fold his laundry and cook him food and do little things around the house, like there's been so many times where I'm like, I feel like I'm supposed to do this, I'm going to do it. And he's felt so loved. And to me, I'm like, wow, like I didn't realize that me just doing your laundry and folding it for you, because he hates folding his laundry, like me just doing that, like made him like, he came in and he was like, I have like never felt so loved. And I was like, wow, I just did your laundry. But like really knowing your spouse and like, what are those things, whether it's as silly as folding their laundry, or if you know something's like really important to them, maybe they're working on something inside of their job, or with like if you had children or just anything like that, like what are ways that you can serve them, and know like, hey, they have a lot of responsibilities, and I know that maybe even kind of your couples to do tasks that you have, like chores around the house, if you take over some of their chores just to like make the load easier on them, and just thinking about them, writing little notes, leaving them around the house. Yeah. Those are just some of the things that I've seen. We've only been married really like a year though.
We're like still figuring it out, definitely. But like, I think it's funny, like what Jess mentioned about like loving each other the way that like we wanted to be loved. Cause like she would also like write me like notes and like stuff like that, which is great. I mean, I love that. I think it's really thoughtful, but like it didn't make me feel loved in the way that like when I write her a note makes her feel loved. I know that like even if it's simple as like, you know, you're so beautiful today, or like I love you so much, just as something as simple as that, which to me like doesn't seem like a lot, like can like make her whole day.
Yeah, totally.
So for me, it's like thinking about the things that like it like takes extra thought for me to think, okay, this is how she wants to, you know, feel loved today. This is like what makes her feel loved.
Being single for like 22 years of my life, like a lot of my life revolved just around like thinking for myself, and really like that intentional effort of, if you have to set a reminder on your phone or whatever it takes to like continually think about your spouse before yourself, and like, how can I serve them, make them feel special, make them know that they're loved and important to me. Because like we can just get wrapped into the tasks that we have, like our jobs, our lives, families, all of that kind of stuff, and kind of be almost like roommates, but not really pursuing each other. And we've noticed even just a year into marriage, like really when we pursue each other, it's when our relationship is like the best it can be, and making time for each other and thinking of each other more than we think about ourselves.
Yeah. Something else that makes Jess feel really loved as well is when I initiate date nights. So that's something I've had to work on as well, and continue to work on as our marriage progresses.
Yeah, isn't it funny how that stuff feels easy before you get married, but as soon as you're married and you're like going to bed next to each other every night and just living life together, it's so easy for that to never happen, because you're like, of course I'm spending time with you, but it's so different. You do have to take that extra initiative.
And it's so easy to love in our own love languages. It's like that.
Yeah, I love that you
that
said
is like, we can say, hey, we're trying to love our spouse if we're trying to love them in our own love languages, but it takes a level of sacrifice and humility to like really say, hey, what, like Chandler, I love that, like what does Jess need today? Like how would she feel loved today? Not like, what is the love I'm willing to give my spouse today? Like, hey, what does she need?
Yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah, we definitely, I can think of multiple examples in our first year because I realized I feel really loved by acts of service. So I would try to serve him that way. Like I would like clean the house and do all these things. And I'm like, look, I cleaned the house. And he's like, great. Like you appreciated it, but you didn't feel loved by it in the way that I would have. And so not only did you not feel the love I was trying to communicate, I felt like defeated because it wasn't like communicating to you what I was trying to. So
Totally.
yeah, like that is totally something you have to learn. And I love that you guys are like in the process. That's great.
Yeah, keep finding those things because like we joke, but it's very serious that like the most loving thing I can do for my wife is the dishes and to clean the kitchen and the bathrooms. And so it's like that's like become one of my favorite things because
It's awesome.
you know it just is loving to her, and I
Yeah.
hate laundry too.
Yeah, I do the laundry. It's funny how it almost changes. I don't know if you guys have noticed that, but like acts of service was not my love language before we were married. Because like you're just dating, you're like, I don't know, it just that didn't communicate to me. But now that he's my life partner, acts of service, like taking some of that burden off of me, like I never feel more loved than that. So that's something that I feel like I don't hear people talk about that, but it was so true for me that my love language totally changed after we got married.
Yeah, I think that's a real thing.
I can attest to that because it's definitely changed for me. So I understand. I mean, it's like crazy, but like I think like at first it was like, oh, like, you know, acts of service is definitely not mine, and like so like I kind of wrestled with that a little bit, but I was like, I then figured out like, okay, like I do actually feel really loved like when you do this, or like, you know, when you make me food, or like when you like serve me in like really intentional ways.
Look, y'all, with divorce rates near 50%, there is no question getting married is one of the biggest decisions you'll ever make.
That is why we created Ready to Knot, our premarital course to help you build a solid foundation for a lasting marriage.
You'll take the world's leading relationship assessment, get a personalized report on the strengths and growth areas of your relationship, and watch lessons where we help you understand your results and give you tools and exercises to grow in 9 different areas.
This is designed to give you structure to have the important conversations you need to have and to get clear on your expectations in everything from finances to family, conflict, sex, roles, faith, and so much more.
Research has proven that investing your time in a course like this will increase your marriage success rate by 30%. Don't just prepare for your wedding day. Invest time preparing for the lifelong marriage that will follow it.
And if you're already married, can we just say that this would make an amazing wedding gift? With Ready to Knot, we'll help you move into marriage with clarity and confidence.
And a special discount just for Let's Get Knotty listeners, go to knottedmarriage.com/ready-to-knot and use code LGK25 for $25 off. That's knottedmarriage.com/READYTOKNOT and use code LGK25 for $25 off.
Now back to the episode.
Something that you guys already said, which is something we say a lot, is that just because you've been married a year and a half doesn't mean you know everything about each other. And we're big proponents of the idea of just constantly being a student of your spouse, because your spouse is going to change. Like we have changed so much, and I know we will continue to change for the next 50 years of our marriage. You just said like 40 the other day. I was like, I hope we're married for more than 40 years because you're going to be like 60. That's young. So anyways, being a student of your spouse and constantly learning about them and like celebrating the change and evolution God is doing in them, and just like having that, because I think so much of what culture says is like, you do all this work to date and find your person and make sure they're the right person. And then when you get married, the studying of your person stops because you assume that you know who they are. But I love that you guys already mentioned like you're still learning about each other. What are some things maybe you've learned so far that have surprised you, or ways that y'all are changing? Like, how are you being a student of each other?
I think, like, off the top of my head, something that I learned about Chandler being married is that he was so much more steady than I thought he was. And that honestly, like, the more comfortable I got with him, I was able to let down my guard. And I think maybe something that he would say about me is, like, not that I'm like sassy, but sometimes I can just like be like really passionate about certain things.
Yeah.
And so, and I can be a very like emotional person, and I feel things really strong for lots of people, and I just like care like a lot, and I always want to pursue excellence. And so sometimes like if I'm like a little bit up and down, he's just always been so steady and so supportive, and like such a rock for me to lean back on. that I definitely saw that in our dating relationship, but as we were married, it's something that I found so attractive about Chandler, but also so safe to know that like this part of how God made him, and it's a part of God's character and nature that's like in Chandler, makes me better because God knew that like I needed someone that had that strength. That's not my strength.
Right.
But then like when I'm super passionate about specific things that God's really put in me, I think that that's a strength that I have. Or that I can be an emotional person and I really feel things strongly for the people that I love or people that I know or I'm getting to know. And so that's like a strength that I have that I think that Chandler can also kind of like press into. And so like learning each other's strengths and weaknesses, and then like being a team and learning like how can we actually pull on each other's strengths, and then like in our weaknesses, how can we like complement each other towards our strengths, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I think
That's
like
so good.
championing each other in those specific strengths. Wow. Because we're not all the same, and like God has given us like things that we're stronger in, and things that we're weaker in. And I think like the beauty about marriage too is that bringing those things together, you're better together, and like you're a better team because of those things. And so like I think one thing that I learned about Jess after marriage is she has a really strong sense of justice, things that are going on in the world, or like when it comes to her family, or when it comes to people that she really loves, like you like really have like a strong sense of like justice, and like just like something I never saw before like we started, or something that I never really like saw fully before we got married. And I think it's so beautiful and like so amazing, but like that's something I'm continuing to like learn, because like that's not exactly how I'm wired fully. But like I can champion her in that and like also learn from that as well.
Jess, you said like you're more emotional and he's more steady, and I love how you said both of those are characteristics of the Lord. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things about marriage is like we both have virtues of God's character, and we can like come together a more complete picture together of who Jesus is, and we can pull that out in each other. That's so cool. Like even contrasting things can both be of God's character. That's amazing. I love it. So one of the other expectations that you mentioned early on, Chandler, was like your wedding night. Someone told you guys not to have expectations for your wedding night. So one of the coolest parts of y'all's story is that you were very intentional to wait to experience physical intimacy until your wedding night, which like, praise God, that's so cool. Now that you are married, how have you seen that be a blessing in your marriage, that patience and trust of that process?
Obviously, we weren't with anyone before dating each other, and so we were both virgins going into our wedding night. So I think like just knowing that we're the only person that each of us have like had sex with is like so beautiful, and I think that we're going to treasure for the rest of our relationship. Our marriage like is really blessed because of that. And it's not that like if someone like had sex before marriage, like that can't be, like that definitely can be redeemed. Yeah, just like intimacy, I feel like has just been like such like a fun learning process, because we never like had experience or anything like that. So we were definitely very new. Took like figuring out, and we're still figuring it out. And it's definitely a journey. I feel like communication is probably like one of the biggest things like for us, like surrounding like sex and intimacy. And it's like a journey that we're still like learning so much, but like the blessing is that it's just us, like, and we've like only been with each other. So I think that's just like so cool.
Yeah. And we just have loved how you guys have shared about that.
Yeah.
That's been something you guys have just like really invited people into and been pretty vulnerable about just what that's looked like. And
so for the listeners who maybe don't know you guys or haven't watched, you do have videos on your YouTube channel all about that, which I think y'all did such an amazing job sharing about that. And I know that's going to be such an encouragement to people.
Thank you.
Yeah. Telling the story on the internet was definitely, I think, a little awkward for me. I was like laughing the whole time in the video, but I also knew that we do have, like, I have had an audience for a while that is interested in my life, and if anything that I shared could be of any help to any girl or guy watching the video, definitely wanted to share that. And I know that, like, our story is not everyone's story, and God can totally redeem and write whatever kind of story that he wants, no matter anyone's past or their present, what they're going into. But it definitely has been special for us knowing that we've only ever been with each other. There's just such a deep level of like trust that we have, and like no comparison either, because it's only ever been like each other. It might be a little bit hard, or we might feel like we're being stretched in a certain way. We can fall back on the fact that like we don't have to compare it to anyone else, or it's like only been each other, and that's a safety and freedom that we have in our intimacy together. And so it definitely, like, I think sex was a little bit harder than I thought it was going to be, but it's always like so worth it. And I think that the enemy always wants to get everyone before, like, even us just having like temptation before we actually were married. And then when you're married, there's like an attack on sex in marriage because it's so holy and it's such a weapon and it's such a gift. And so just like continuing to fight for that and be intentional with each other and press in even when sometimes it might be a little bit hard, and like we're still learning and growing. But like the best thing that I think for us that we know is that there's like sometimes where it's so amazing, and there's other times where like it's not like what you see in the movies. I don't know. I think that sex is so different in the movies, and like especially for us being virgins, we're like, what in the world? Like this is so different. Like than what the world like portrays it, and it's such like a false view of what sex really is, because it's so much more than just like physical pleasure. Like that is such a gift and a fruit of it, but it's really like so spiritual, so sacred, so holy, and such an emotional thing. And so sometimes like to remove any pressure, expectation, like Chandler's been really good to be like, you know, let's just like take this really slow. Let's just focus on emotionally connecting and spiritually connecting. Like this really is worship to God. Like us being fully known and seen before ourselves, and getting to embrace one another and not putting like pressure or performance on it. Because I feel like the world always wants there to be there's like such a performance mentality around it, and it's really easy to fall into that versus just like truly serving each other, loving each other, and humbling each other before ourselves. You know,
definitely. I heard this quote before getting married, or just like a quote for marriage in general, but the devil tries to get unmarried people in bed and then married people out of bed. So like you can definitely see like the assignment of the enemy like over marriage to like get people not to have sex, or like to create dysfunction or like disconnection, so that we're like not like having sex, because like God created it as like such an amazing tool in order to connect and like be, you know, emotionally, physically, spiritually intimate with our spouse. And so just like really like leaning into that, and we've like even just seen it as like such a great tool to, you know, combat any type of disconnection, you know, within our relationship.
It's like the world wants to talk about sex when you're single or dating, but as soon as you get married, it's like no one wants to talk about sex. It's like almost more taboo to talk about sex in marriage. And that's like another thing we just want to break, is we just want to be able to like talk about sex and talk that, you know, like sex is great and it's like really unifying, but it can be messy and not always on the same page. And that, you know, like sex isn't always going to be the great movie, you know, scene that it is. And that like, that is all good. And that's all like just unifying and loving for you and your spouse. And
Yeah. And I love that you pointed out. I think that's so true. I've heard that before. And I totally believe that, the enemy works on both sides of married and unmarried people, like trying to do the opposite of God's plan for that. And so I love that you have that perspective. Like y'all were obedient and trusted God's plan, like for you not to engage in that beforehand. But that doesn't mean that you're not going to have attacks from the enemy on your sex life after you're married, So it's so cool that you guys are wise enough to know that and know that like it is for the rest of your lives, like going to be something that you grow in together, and just like everything in marriage, communication, everything. The stats say that married couples in their 50s have the most satisfied sex lives, which hey,
it only
makes
gets
sense,
better.
right?
Yeah.
Like more time.
No, it
Yeah,
really does.
Exactly. Yeah. Thanks for being willing to share that. I know, like you said, that's probably like not been easy necessarily to share, but I am so confident so many people have been blessed by y'all's willingness to share that. So thank you for
so much.
your transparency there. That's amazing.
Yeah, let's jump into the fun stuff.
So now we've got some fun questions.
Okay,
so
let's go.
The first, here at the Let's Get Knotty podcast, we want to know about your naughty list. Unlike Santa's naughty list, this is a KNOTTY list. So we like to talk about your naughty list as the things that y'all use as tools in your tool belt to help y'all grow closer together, to stay connected in your marriage. So this could be like questions that you ask each other, or ways that you serve each other, or rhythms that you have in your life that you use to stay connected in your marriage. What's on y'all's naughty list?
Yeah, it's a good question.
I feel like we're growing like a lot in this, but we do have like a couple that we thought of.
Yeah.
Do you want to go first?
Yeah, so one of them, a while back I heard this or read it somewhere. It's called the 1-1-1 rule. And basically it means one date night a week, one weekend a month, 1 week a year. And it's just like an intentional kind of like rhythm to spend time with your spouse, to intentionally go on a date night every week, to
pursue each other,
to like get time away with each other. And we haven't been perfect, but we started doing that this year and have been pretty good with like trying to schedule like a weekend away, or even just like a night away, 1 month or one weekend a month, and then doing a date night, every week. And then in October we're going to do our week away, which is kind of like we're celebrating our anniversary, which was actually back in March. Because that was like a really crazy time for us. We were moving out of our apartment into our new house, and it was just a really crazy time. So we decided we're going to do like a week away in the fall.
Where
and
are you
celebrate
headed?
our anniversary. So
we're going to Blue Ridge, Georgia, and I've like been missing fall so much because I'm originally from Pennsylvania too, but I've lived in Florida like so much of my life now that we don't have seasons here. We don't get winter or fall, and I just love like autumn and the leaves. And we wanted to do like, we're 20-30 minutes away from the beach, but we wanted to experience some good old nature, like kind of be secluded, just kind of like a vision time, I think too, for just like our family unit, because we've been married, like a year, and just seeking the Lord and like, what does this next year look like for our marriage together? And so we're really excited. We're kind of calling it like our 1 year anniversary trip, but also like a little retreat. And I think that having like a week a year where you are intentional with your spouse, or even if it's just like a couple days, but it's like a getaway where it's fresh vision for your marriage, like what are like goals or things that God's putting on your heart, because really vision is so important, and we're super excited for that. So definitely like date nights are non-negotiable for us. We're really wanting to keep those like every week, like every Friday night or every Thursday night is like our date night. And then I love the idea, and we've been doing it more of the one weekend a month. And that's really fun because it's something that we look forward to, and it's just like the two of us that we kind of disconnect from our phones. We really get to ask each other fun questions. We'll play games, just go somewhere, do something fun together. So that's like one of our, I guess, rhythms. And then another one is we read the book Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, and it's amazing. And from that book, there's like so many rhythms from that. But one of the big takeaways is Sabbath, and actually practicing that, taking a step back from the hustle and bustle of life, because it's so easy to just get caught up in it and always having plans and always doing something. But we've been really trying to make it such a habit in our life and pursuing the life of once a week having a Sabbath and really intentionally resting our hearts, resting with the Lord, and then resting with each other. And so that's something that honestly has been like a game changer since we just recently like moved into our first house, which is really exciting. We haven't even announced anything like on social media yet. So I guess this is like our soft launch. But it's been kind of crazy.
New home.
Because we've had like so many projects that we've been doing. So Sabbath has kind of been a little, because we work full time. Like we work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. And sometimes it goes like longer into the evenings and stuff like that. And so we've not been the best at doing Sabbath since we moved into our house in the last couple months. But we've really gotten it together a lot more. And so it's something that we want to start picking back up again, because we notice like for us individually and just for our marriage, like such a shift when we practice Sabbath.
Oh my gosh.
And we slow down and we disconnect from everything. So I'd say that's something that was like a huge game changer for us.
When we were consistently doing it every week, like it was like something that we started to like look forward to, even though it was the first few times was kind of hard to like slow down and actually like intentionally rest, because you're like, what does that actually look like what do we do? But then, just trying to like work through and like figure out, okay, like, resting in this way, doing this, like being intentional, like with each other, or just like getting away, like spending time with the Lord on those days, like eating.
We take communion together.
Yeah, like we would take communion. So like trying to find those rhythms, but we're definitely excited to like get back into that, because we haven't like consistently done it, at least since we've moved in. So we're definitely want to get it back up.
But we noticed that that's something that was huge for us. And then I think like another thing that comes to my mind that we've been talking about like a lot more, and is just individually, like, yes, like as a married unit pursuing Jesus wholeheartedly, but like individually continuing to pursue Jesus wholeheartedly. Because the more that we are individually becoming whole and we're going after the Lord and going after the fullness of the gospel in our own lives, the stronger our marriage is and the stronger our family unit is. And when we take that time aside of, I feel like we're pretty good at that, just like individually seeking the Lord, but really making it like we're going after the Lord for the fullness of in our own lives, but then like together for our marriage, we notice like such a big difference, because it is that thing of like, I can't love Chandler unless I'm filled with the love of Jesus for him. Like I can only love him like this versus God wants to give me a capacity greater than my own strength that I can have. And so when I'm going after the Lord individually and being filled to the fullness of Jesus in my life for my everyday things that come up in work, but also for our marriage, like we notice such a huge difference. And that's been like an open-ended discussion we've been having of like, we want the fullness of God in our life. We want it in marriage and family, in every area of our hearts, our lives, the way we love people, the way we open our home to people. And so that's definitely something that I feel like is probably one of the first and most important things that I could say to anyone, to have like a good rhythm in their life, is like pray together as a couple, go after the Lord together as a couple. But like at the end of the day, like I'm going to stand before Jesus face to face, not with Chandler by my side, and Chandler the same, like when we see him face to face. And so it's like, what account am I going to give before the Lord? Like I want to continue to pursue my relationship with Jesus and vice versa him, so that we can be the best version that God has for us in our marriage.
That's so good. And not only when you pursue Jesus on your own, not only do you have more love to give him, but you're also not looking for him to fill the emptiness that Jesus is there to fill for you. So it's so beautiful. I love that you pointed that out. Like it has such a ripple effect on both sides. Also, I love both of the rhythms that you mentioned, because we're big fans of both of those.
Well, I never heard the full 1-1-1.
Oh, I've definitely heard that.
I feel
we basically do that. You maybe
I'm not aware of it. But date night's always been big, and then I feel like the annual getaway is like.
Well, I've also tried to implement our like monthly like family meeting, and you're like you struggle with that a little more than I do.
So schedules and like doing that is not my nature.
It's not in your nature. Yeah.
And so like having the idea and like focusing on it is, I think, just a really good reminder in a way that like just us as men can lead out really well and just bless our wives and our families. Like that's
But the Sabbath, I love how you talked about the Sabbath, because he knows I'm like nerding out over this, because I feel like Sabbath, like truly abiding in like what we've been called to with Sabbath, like it seriously changed my life. Like I feel like a different person. And it's funny how you mentioned that you haven't been doing it since you moved, because our lives have been a little chaotic the last couple of months, really. Like, and so we have not really been Sabbathing. We were really good about it most of this year, and then the last couple months, not like.
I felt very called out when you guys brought that up. I was like,
but I can actually feel a difference in my spirit, in my body, in my mind. Like it just knowing that day every week was coming where I wasn't going to be doing chores. I wasn't going to be working. I was just going to be like resting in God's goodness and in my relationship with my husband. Like it's amazing. So like way to go. Because it took us years to figure that out. Honestly, like we
just started at the beginning of this year.
Yeah, like it took us 5 years into marriage, because in the beginning, most of our marriage, we just kind of hustled our way through it. So now when we Sabbath, where we're like actually resting, I can work so much harder throughout the week, like just like coming from that full place. So I am the biggest fan, and I like way to go, like implementing that as early on as you are, because it took us way too long.
Yeah, I like that. I think you guys came up with 3 great ones.
Those
that
are such good examples.
Cookie cutter. So I love it.
Thank you.
I love your naughty list.
Thanks.
Okay, now to wrap it up, we have a few fun rapid fire questions.
So these are going to be questions for you guys. And you guys are just going to answer if it's Jess or Chandler.
Sounds good.
So out of the two of you, which one is messier?
I would say
I think we're equally messy. Maybe me though.
Are you messy? Are you messy in different ways?
It depends on what it is.
In
if
different
it's
ways.
clothes, like on the floor, it's me. But sometimes.
Okay, yeah, that's true. Yeah,
but
so
like, when it comes to kitchen stuff, I think I'm always like going around and like cleaning and keeping the main house is always clean. But I can be really bad with like my makeup or my.
So
clothes
maybe like
out.
50-50.
Yeah, like 50-50. I really want to work on like, it really only takes 10 seconds to put my clothes away. Why do I throw it on the floor? But I'm working on breaking that bad habit. So
I feel called out by that. Like,
I
always throw things right in front of the hamper. I'm
like, you're so close. Who is the first to apologize?
I think I am.
Yeah, you're really
Chandler?
good at that.
I love
something. Something that I learned, not to like expound too much, but something I learned too is that apologizing, even if it's not totally your fault, like goes a long way, and is really hard to do, but it goes a long way.
That.
So
it always does.
Yeah.
Honestly, when he apologizes, even though I know it's kind of my fault, it just breaks me. I'm like, wow.
Yep.
Who did I marry?
I know. It just, it just like totally pulls your walls down.
And I love when men are leading out in being apologizers. I think that
you're good
just
at that
like
too.
Sets a really good tone for a marriage. So, all right. Well, we're really good at making these fast. All right. So who's more romantic?
Oh, who's more romantic? Ooh. I think it's 50-50.
I would say when we were dating and engaged, Jess was definitely more romantic. But I think since being married, I think I can tend to be a little bit more, just because like I tend to initiate like date nights or like special nights together a little bit more than she does. But we're both still really romantic. Jess can be really romantic if she wants to be.
Can be very over the top, like extravagant when I'm like feeling it or want to do it.
That's so sweet. Okay, who's more adventurous?
Definitely Chandler.
Yeah,
Chandler.
If there's a mountain, if it's backpacking, if it's surfing, if it's jumping off a cliff, anything, it's Chandler. Like, I like to be adventurous, just not as much as him.
He is all for it. I love it.
Yep, anything that's dangerous and has somewhat of a risk, I'm all about it.
You're terrified of heights, but for some weird reason you want to jump out of a plane?
Yeah.
That is terrifying.
Let's go together.
Honestly,
Let's do
I'm
it.
like,
Let's do it.
I don't want to do it.
Let's
I'm
do
so
it.
scared to, but I think that if I do it, I'll break fear off of my life, so it might be really worth it. Because it's like, if that's my biggest fear, then fear can't stop me anymore.
Yeah.
You know?
So true.
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, who's more stubborn?
Me.
Yeah, probably you.
Hey, it takes a lot of humility to admit that you're stubborn. So
Yeah.
I love it.
I know, because like Chandler's so sweet. My nickname that I call him is Sweet. Like, he's so kind, and I definitely can be a little bit more opinionated and stubborn.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, definitely.
I'm okay to admit that.
All right, we got one more for you guys. And so this is kind of pulled from your wedding night video. But
we ask all couples this though. We
yeah,
love
it's
asking
one of our
this
favorite
question,
questions, but
you
we
guys
like
mentioned
highlighted and circled this one for you guys.
Okay.
For the bathroom, is the door open or closed when the bathroom is used in your house?
Ooh.
Closed.
Yeah, for her it's
Always.
closed always. For me, depending.
Mostly it's open. I mean,
mostly it's
number
always
one,
open.
it's open. Number two, it's closed.
Oh yeah, if you want to be detailed,
I
yeah.
like it.
Hey,
Like-
that's a good boundary. That makes sense.
Yeah. Number two, I just got like have to have my privacy, just like the man's time on his throne.
Yeah.
But then like
You're in your
number
office
one, it's
doing
just
some
quick,
work.
quick and easy. So it's like it takes more work to shut the door. So
Yeah.
just
Yeah, the only time I ever peed in front of Chandler was on our wedding night, which I did share that in our video. And that was just
Right.
so chaotic. There was so
I
much
thought
that
that was
happened
so
that I
funny.
was like, I don't even know
Hilarious.
what's happening at this point.
so we heard like after sex, she's supposed to pee.
We didn't know anything.
Uh-huh.
So we
And
were
so
like,
we were like, okay, like, we like just had sex for the first time. She's like, okay, I have to pee now. And I'm like in the bathroom. There's like so
the
much
shower
going on.
curtain fell down. Like, he was trying to turn the shower on, and like the curtain fell down. Like, I was like screaming because I got
So
scared.
good.
Like, it was just like a catastrophe.
I don't think we shared that in our wedding video. So there you go. There's a bonus.
That is incredible. Yeah,
that's
for
pretty great.
anyone who hasn't watched it, you should definitely go watch that video because it is a hilarious story. But that's bonus content. I love it. All right. Well, guys, thank you so much. We're so thankful that y'all were here. As we wrap up this conversation, I mean, man, we just want to say we are so encouraged by y'all's intention that you pursued. I mean, every story you told, you can see it from before you were married, before you were even dating, through your marriage. And that just shines through in you guys. Y'all are such a testament to like the fruit that happens when you walk in the Lord's plan for your marriage. And y'all just shine that so well. And we're just so encouraged by you.
I think something we've loved seeing in you guys, that you guys have a common mission together.
Yeah.
That's something that I think is so unique and so beneficial in marriage. It's just like having a greater purpose.
Yeah.
And so
Thank
we've
you.
loved that. It's shown with how intentional you guys are.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, those are just some things that we just love and just want to encourage couples with. And that's why we've loved having you guys on.
Yeah.
We've created a whole premarital course called Ready to Knot. That's like all about being intentional and having conversations.
Nice.
Wow.
And
Let's go.
just like, I love that we're just sitting here and you guys just talking about things. We're just like sitting there.
Yeah, I'm like, we did not
checking
mentor.
boxes of things.
Yeah, I'm like, we did not mentor them before they got married, but it sure sounds like it because they did everything that we talk about.
That's so
You guys
cool.
nailed it.
Wow.
It's
Oh,
amazing.
thank you.
So,
That's really cool.
yeah,
That's amazing.
we're so encouraged by you. How can the listeners, if they want to follow y'all for more after this episode, tell them how can they connect with you guys?
You could follow us on Instagram. We post different things just about marriage and life, normally in like our captions or on our story.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yeah.
my Instagram is Jessica Reid, REID, and you can find Chandler with Chandler Miller.
Chandler _922. That's my Instagram.
Yeah. And then
Perfect.
I've been on and off like making YouTube videos for a while.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely want to start getting back into it again. And we did post like a lot of the beginning of our marriage kind of like on YouTube, like
Yes,
going
you
into
did.
it, all the planning, like our wedding night, just like all of the behind the scenes kind of that I feel like not a lot of people actually share going into marriage. We like filmed a ton of that, and it's on our YouTube channel, and it's on my channel, which is called Jessica Reid, REID. I'm Jessica Reid Miller now, but that's just like my original channel name. And so if you want any other like encouragement about just marriage life. Our wedding video is on there too, which our wedding video has like our story summed up in that as well. So if that is encouraging to anyone, but yeah, I would just say if you'd like to follow us along for our journey and just be encouraged, like our heart is always just to glorify the Lord in whatever content we post on social media, and just to encourage people to like be all that God's created them to be.
Well, y'all do that so well. I will definitely link y'all's Instagrams and your YouTube channel in the show notes for everyone listening. But seriously, guys, thank you so much. Again, thank you for being willing to be our first guest. We are so honored.
Our first podcast ever, so this was awesome. Thank you guys so much for having us.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Thank you for being here. I'm sure y'all will continue to encourage, and we'll just be continually praying for your marriage as y'all grow, and we're cheering you on.
Thank you so much.
So everybody go follow Jessica and Chandler as they keep going into their wrapping up their second year of marriage.
Yeah.
They're halfway through their second year of marriage. That is crazy.
Yeah. Thanks for being here.
We'll see everybody for next week's episode.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks so much for hanging out with us for another episode of Let's Get Knotty.
Remember to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And if you want more encouragement, join us on Instagram and YouTube at Knotted Marriage to check out all the other resources we have to help you build a tighter marriage. If this conversation encouraged you in any way, please consider leaving us a review on whatever platform you're listening and posting a screenshot on social media. That support means more than you know and really helps us reach more couples.
We'll see you for next week's episode. Go get naughty.